When you ask what the ultimate test in racing is, many drivers will immediately point you towards the Nordschleife. So buckle up for a real doozy as we get ready for the Skip Barber Sim Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. I am Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Howie Burrows. Behind the scenes is our director, Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. There's a lot to go over here, so let's check this place out with our track guide. Welcome to the Nürburgring. Nicknamed the Green Hell by three-time F1 world champion Sir Jackie Stewart, it is often regarded as the greatest test of a driver anywhere on the planet. Just looking at the stats will tell you why. While the combined version holds a swath of choices, they all include 100-plus corners and range between 14 and 16 miles, or 24 to 26 kilometers in length. Add to that roughly 1,000 feet in elevation change over the course of the lap, and it's easy to see what's so impressive about it. Simply memorizing the course is over half the battle for drivers, let alone being fast. It goes without saying that the Nordschleife portion is dangerous. Many fast corners lack runoff, there's blind apexes everywhere, and in a couple cases, even modern cars will get airborne. The list of famous turns is pretty lengthy, but some of the more notorious are places such as fluke lots, Miss Hit Miss, Bravery Corner, and of course, the ever-iconic Carousel. It's not just the places where you have to move the wheel to get attention too. The Dottinger Hoa stretches for more than 1.5 miles in length. However, that isn't even digging into the Grand Prix portion of the circuit. Much more open and safer in nature, it's no less challenging from a technical standpoint. Passing is still surprisingly hard in most cars, and corners such as the Schumacher S can spit you into the barrier if you don't respect the curbs. Events such as the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring offer drivers of many skill levels the chance to tackle this behemoth, and still draws gigantic grids to this day. Many race fans consider this the mecca of road racing, and any driver who is able to push the limits here often quickly garners their respect. Well, Howie, when they say they don't make them like this anymore, they really mean they don't make them like this anymore.
I know some of the best drivers in the world that will only run around this track in all sorts of different cars. These ones are going to be very slower and very aero-sensitive. A lot of this track is going to be delicately dancing around and just trying to keep the car in one piece. But the Dottinger Hoa is going to be a legendary sight to behold. You don't even want to be in second when you enter this place. You need to make sure you get past at the right time and not get repassed. And with the extra long run onto the Grand Prix circuit on the other side, this is going to be a long one. It's going to be a doozy.
It'll really test the drivers without a doubt. And as we wait for the session to come up here, obviously it's going to be a little bit different. They've already qualified, so you'll see drivers line up according to that qualifying from another session. And those who did not set a time are going to be starting from the back. And as we take a look at the race details, it says only 3 laps. Don't worry, it's going to be 3 very long laps out there. They have open setups in this series, but there's not a lot you can do to these cars. So it will wind up being mostly out of the driver finding the speed. 1 spare car in case you wind up with problems, but if you need that spare car, you're probably not going to be taking a win here today. Standing starts, which could make it interesting down into the Yokohama S at the start of this one. And they have a disqualification at 17 incidents. Probably not going to be a talking point, I imagine, Howie, because anybody who reaches 17 incident points at this track is probably not finishing.
Sounds like me on my average lap at this place, no matter how slow the car. Memorizing every little wrinkle of this track is a test in itself that not everybody has mastered. I've covered this before on the Nordschleife, but here we have the Grand Prix circuit combined as well. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for side-by-side racing on a big, wide track before we then move into the Nordschleife and try and compete with each other. That's going to add an interesting dynamic to the start and end of each lap.
Certainly opens up a few more passing opportunities that aren't just a slipstream battle, but yeah, it does change the nature of it, makes the laps even longer around here, if anybody could believe that. I mean, we're talking over 16 miles in length for just 1 lap around this circuit. So drivers will need to make sure that they don't run into those problems. If you have to take a tow, it's going to wind up taking a long, long time until you're brought back into pit lane. The other thing that's going to be interesting is this place often how he brings out specialists. So we might see some differing drivers than we typically see in the series.
Anyone with a Formula license high enough can make the top split in this free split race, but indeed, there are plenty that will just come here and they will just master the track. 5,000 SOF on our top split here today means there's a few of the Skip Barber specialists, but there's also just going to be some that know this track and adore every last bit of it. And they're going to really bring the fight, I think, to the veterans of the series.
I think so, too. I've seen some of those specialists come in to cars that also require specialists. I think to the Lotus 49s and the Lotus 79s, and still those drivers that only race this track do tend to fare well. That is how unique this place is around here. As we see, just looks like 2.5 minutes left in this warm-up session. Hopefully everybody's gotten the practice in that they need around this circuit, because you do not want to go in blind, that is for sure. But this will show us it looks like the end of that lap around the Grand Prix circuit, heading on to the Nordschleife, which the other difference I think that we should point out, Howie, it's so much more narrow on the Nordschleife, and we're going to see it right here.
You go from a track designed for modern F1 to the world's longest toll road. Definitely designed as a purpose-built racing track, but it's very much about your survival against others. These cars are small, so I would expect some of the daring to still find ways to throw cars in. Here's Jose Luis Mayo, who's not even going to be able to get a lap done before the end of the 7-minute warm-up. As you mentioned, drivers already start pre-gridded. Anyone that set a time during the week will start up at the front. Those who haven't will be ranked on their iRating at the back. Sometimes you get quite a few people that don't set a time around in. Sometimes you get people that spend their entire lives trying to set a perfect time around there. But you can see these cars, they abuse the slip already. I'm noticing Luis Mayo is abusing the curbs to get a little bit more into these corners as well.
So Jose taking off on one of those long stretches where it's going to be flat out. Now, normally Flug Platz is a bit scary. These cars do not get fast enough easily to keep your foot to the floor. And then it's on into Cottonborn on the lead to Schwartenkreuz. So it will then start to finally get a little bit slower through there and maybe get a little bit more sketchier. But this will be perhaps one of those parts where you'll see drivers just kind of swapping spots back and forth.
I can already picture the big draft runs you're going to get down here, let alone at the giant dot in a hole straight. Here's the first turn that's really going to test you after that massive run. Got to watch the gravel on the outside and the curb on the inside, but that's well taken. This is going to count towards anything, but it's good to see how someone really tackles the first half of this legendary circuit on their own. With others in tow, you're going to have to drive very, very differently in order to get away from your opposition.
It'll require strategic thinking, that is without a doubt. But drivers are used to this if they've ever raced this track without a doubt. As we got a few seconds left, and then we're going to be heading off into that race session here today. So as we let that clock tick on down to 0, we now wait for them to switch on over, give ourselves the grid for the beginning of this race, as we actually don't get that until we get to that gridding session. And it looks like Adam Miles does have the pole position from what I'm seeing here. So it is going to be Jose Luis Mella who starts next to him on that front row. Vlado Tito will be starting in P3. Pepe Fuentes will be starting from the 4th position. Benjamin Kopke will be in the 5th spot. After that, it's Ricardo Espinella Martinez in 6th. Philip Burke starts in 7th with Frankie D in P8. Miguel Cuenca Martin starts in 9th, and Brandon Crosta rounds out your top 10. What's the next few look like here, Howie?
These 10-minute laps, unbelievable. We're on to drivers that didn't set a time now, and it's iRating rank. Peter Sapanki in 11th, next to Jesus Cabal in 12th, Joachim Osbeck in 13th, next to Javier Casero Romo, and on the back row, David Garcia and Alex Salas Hernandez.
All right, so we now wait for that call from the green flag. As up on the front, you do have Adam Miles ready to go. but he's going to want to try and be clear of drivers coming into the Yokohama S. There is the green flag. We are racing for 3 laps around the Nordschleife, and it is a pretty good start from Miles behind him. Jose Mella is going to immediately try to cover off Lado Tito, and down into the braking. It does widen up here. Will we see 3 or 4 wide? Oh, but our leader has gone a little bit too deep, and now Jose is going to try to go around the outside.
This is the most normal racetrack you're going to get around here. Adam Miles going to enjoy the benefit of the inside on exit. And a few more left-hand turns might just keep him in the lead. A little bit of 2 wide scrambling up behind. I see one driver going pretty wide and only just slotting into place. Lots of space to run side by side here on this Grand Prix circuit. I believe we're doing the full layout rather than the 24 layout as well. So we're going to head all the way down through the back and up through the chicane. I think I saw one off in the back.
I think looks like most everybody is still going. So if they went off, they've been able to rejoin. All 16 cars still on the circuit. Adam Miles back up to the front ahead of Mella after a brief moment, maybe fearing he might lose his spot, but as they work their way through the Dunlop hairpin. Oh, and it looks like Hernandez towards the back of the field, going to go side by side. This is for 15th.
This is a part of the track in a race where you really need to stick with the pack. If you can stay with people, you'll be able to make those big runs later when it matters. But if you slip away, if you fall away, then you're not going to be able to get that slipstream down the big back straight at the Nordschleife, and then it all just falls apart for you.
Yeah, undoubtedly, I feel like drivers' first task is going to be keeping up with that main train at the front, and then you still got an opportunity to try and hold on. We hop on board with Fuentes now sitting here in 4th position. That is Tito just in front of him, coming up into the braking of the chicane. This is the swifter version of the chicane here, coming up into the last part, and Fuentes nearly goes off the course, straddling that curb, but thankfully keeps it from spinning.
As we dip into the Nordschleife now, this top 4 have the closest group between them, but there's still several drivers not entirely off the back of it, of course. I think Ricardo Espinela Martinez is going to need to make up a little bit of pace to quite reach the back. It's going to be a little single file running, but I keep seeing the way Luis Mayo runs, and you're thinking he might try and stick a nose in. He's been the one pointing it out throughout parts of this track so far. He's certainly been the closest to Adam Miles' rear.
Yeah, gave it a good attempt at the start, but just wasn't able to do anything with it. Probably knows the deal, I think, at this track. Knows that it's going to be its own unique beast in terms of competition. Now it's up towards Flugplatz. Interesting that he's not staying within the slipstream. So now he pulls in behind Adam, but he's also got Tito closing in, and as well, it looks like Fuentes regained some lost time a little bit earlier. Meanwhile, very close here behind, I think this is Martin Kopke, and now we start to get Melia making an attempt. Goes around the outside. This is going to be the long way up into the Swedish cross, and wow, already Adam Miles is able to utilize that side draft to get back in front of him, and will retain the lead coming up into Arenberg.
You want to do absolutely anything you can to stop someone from dive-bombing you deep into there, but Adam just stuck to that line with a lot of confidence. One of the absolute experts of this car and the community manager, so he's responsible for the reason we're here in the first place. Miea's not done one bit. This top 4 is really, really starting to run. Mostly the free, because Vlado Tito is a big part of this battle as well, but Miea's played a card early here. He's played the card that he's going to get alongside Adam, and that's going to become a part of the tactical game, I think. This is a race that's so much more tactical and strategical than just about more pace.
Martinez has joined this top group, and it's now about a second and a half to Philip Burke. Now, that said, I'm pretty sure, and you may know a little bit better than I do, Howie, a second and a half on some of these long, long straights could still get you enough toe that you can catch up, but we'll wait and see what the breakoff point is.
Well, you got to be careful that, you're doing it against a group that in itself is slipstreaming off each other. So on paper, a second should be pretty good to work with down these straights. These cars are that drafty, that's sort of about your mark, but you do want to make sure you're within enough range that they don't run away, drafting off each other. Off the back of this, Ricardo Espineta Martinez just hanging on as a few drivers go wide into the grass bit by bit throughout. The break-off is significant behind, but they're playing their own battle as well. Slower portion of the track now. Lots of very, very tight technical corners, but there'll be more chances of slipstream before the dot in the home.
Yeah, it's been kind of wavering between 1.2 and 1.4 seconds down to Philip Burt there in 6th position. So I wouldn't count him out quite yet. It all depends on how much they battle here at the front. Will they hold off until the end of the race, or are they going to continue to try and trade back and forth? Here's the next very long run that we've got. This is up through Kesselchen towards Bravery Corner.
You're better at these corner names than I'll ever be, let me tell you that. But this corner, that corner's the bane of my existence. Always go wide and hit something terrible on there. That's just my personal stories, though. Then it really does sort of speed up quite a bit. Adam Miles, I'm noticing he's playing the game a little bit differently. He's sort of sticking his nose out of the line of Mayer again. Maybe a little bit scared of a little bit of possible turbulence for the car ahead in line. And now the whole pack is compressing very tight, man. Miles has a run. That's going to be clearly done. And in fact, it could be Tito as well.
Yeah, I think Tito's going to try and ride through up into that 2nd place. Melia's not trying to fight it, although he does come back a little bit here now up into Bravery Corner. We're going to go too wide. No, he pulls out of it and slots back into line. Yeah, in regards to the corner, I'm one of those weirdos that was sad the time that I got to ride at this track in person, that the driver that they had taking us around was reading out the corner names because I wanted to read out the corner names to him instead.
I just remember it as like that hard one, oh god, that nightmare, and I just slowly just make my way around there. The time I got a 0x Ringmaster took me months, let me put it like that, and it had to be in a spec racer Ford as well. Makes you very, very respectful of these drivers that are able to not only keep it planted, but they're able to race around there, and they're able to pass. We're approaching the make or break moment on this track, though, where it's not even just about a draft to be in P1, it's about a draft to be the drafter, to be the drafter.
Yeah, this is going to be a long period where it's mostly corners. It's not as much about the slipstream, because they're coming up through Hedwig's Heights into Vickerman here in a short time. Another very fast set of S's that really requires you to be on the edge and use a lot of the curb. I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot here, is the height of these curbs really can play a factor in the line that you're able to do depending on what car you're in.
Well, it's interesting that I saw Mayer sort of take them in the practice session almost deliberately. We know these cars love to just run on the edge of slip, sort of what they do, but he sort of decided like which ones he wanted to jump on and which ones he didn't want to in order to get rotation out of the car and possibly some more speed. You have to practice this combination all week in order to work out really what you'd rather do or across the corners of this track. But these are no GT cars which hate every curve for passion. I think there's some that play into your advantage here.
Yeah, absolutely. They can be a little bit more compliant. By the way, that second group, which is now being led by Martin, is 2.5 seconds back. I think that is, in fact, too far to catch the slipstream. So top 5 seem to have finally broken away, but at the back of them is not this driver that we're riding on board with. It's behind him. This is Fuentes, and Martinez is the number 13, sitting in 5th with this group. This is up through Swallowtail. Very fast set of corners where finally it's going to slow down at the end of it into the mini carousel.
And I always see this track as a slow build and build and build toward the end of it all. And I think we're getting pretty close to the end, even if I called it prematurely the last time. Adam Miles up to half a second ahead at his best, but that's not going to get him away from the running pack at all. What he wants to really hope is that Tito and Mayer here do the battling among themselves and eat up time, but you can see the scale of the run already and just how much Adam Miles grows in the visor of Tito. They're willing to go 3 wide. There would totally be space for 4 later on in the race when things get more desperate. In fact, more are going to take the chance that this isn't even the end of the run.
Thank goodness, yeah, going from 4th to 1st there, that's Fuentes, and following him, Martinez will go from 5th to 2nd. Look at them jockey behind, just enough space being left but now a few of them having to lift at times because there's just no room to try and squeak through there. And from first to fifth for Adam Miles, I have a feeling he is going to play this one more towards the end of this race. I don't think he's too panicked about losing that many positions.
If there's any driver here that I count on knowing how to play the game, Adam's one of them, 10,000 iRacing, and pretty much made his craft entirely through the Skip Barber car. So he's one of those forces to be reckoned with. We return to the Grand Prix circuit now, where drivers have a little bit more space, and this race gets to play a little bit more traditional. Interesting dynamic of racing on the combined layout, of course, is that the run you get down that straight is actually a little longer. Yeah, there's a few chicanes you've got to sort of navigate your way through, but it's as opposed to just running on the Nordschleife itself, where you take a hard right and then you're back into the layout. You sort of get that longer run down to a start-finish straight is really the one that matters. I think that's going to be very important by the end of this.
Exactly. It allows you a chance to fight back into the first corner. I don't know if it's going to be enough to fight back before the finish line. You're going to have to get a really massive run, I think, to snipe somebody, because they kind of do it F1 style, where it's an early finish line on the straightaway. Even still, we could get some excitement. Meanwhile, coming down into Ford Curve here, it is Fuentes leading Martinez. Tito still sitting in the third. Miles has retaken fourth off of Melia, who gets demoted into fifth.
I think for all these drivers, as long as they're here now, they're not too concerned with anything else that really happens. The race has been long. We've shown now that obviously leading into that straight isn't going to be your race winner, but obviously getting the slipstream run now at the end of this lap isn't going to be your win either. You just need to be fast enough to be in this top five, something that the pack behind has not been able to achieve. Benjamin Kopke almost running on his own out there in P6 right now. As long as you're here, as long as you don't get into an accident, that's going to be the key to victory. We now look a little bit further back. Peter Sapanki, finished driver, side-by-side with Hayes' Cabal, where we get to see some of the side-by-side racing on this Grand Prix circuit. Sapanki almost pushing Cabal right up against the line, but cleanly done. A little slow on exit, and Hayes almost gets his nose in.
Back up to the leaders once again. Martinez now ahead of Fuentes, coming through the chicane side-by-side between Tito and Miles. You're right. They are not shy of racing hard through that part of the circuit. In fact, we did see a bit of side-by-side happening at times here on the Nordschleife. You were telling me, actually, Howie, before we came live, about how these drivers at this top level of the Skippies tend to be kind of elbows out and not afraid to race hard.
Yeah, especially in this time slot, especially. There's two major ones for the communities, and this one is certainly the European-facing one, and this is where obviously you get quite a few more of those European names in the group, and there have been bad blood. There's been reputation between people before on this track, but they still come out every single week, and on some of the tracks where they get desperate near the end, you see stuff the likes of which you wouldn't believe from some of these drivers. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new ones from the last season we covered on this channel, of course.
We had briefly looked at that second group. I just want to give an update that Kopke is about half a second ahead, but he's now reached a long straightaway. So, yeah, he's trying desperately to break it. We'll see if any of this group can break that draft, because I'm not really expecting them to be able to do so with how powerful it is in these cars. Now Fuentes retakes the lead, but he's not fully ahead. You can see some of the use of that side drafting once again. That does have an effect here in the sim. Not as powerful in these cars. As they slip a little sideways through the Swedish cross down into Ehrenberg. Once again, Fuentes is going to have to duke it out wheel to wheel, coming through the downhill right-hander, and they still will not relent. They're going to continue to fight for the lead.
Well, we saw that being in the lead could be a bit of a disadvantage earlier on, but they're loving the side-by-side, and you talked about how little space there is on these tracks, but when you put these cars into scale and you understand how small they are, you realize they can pretty much fight anywhere at all and still go 2, maybe even 3 wide if they were crazy enough around this circuit. There's plenty of corners that offer good battling in these slower cars. This is not just a hot lappers track like it is in bigger modern machinery, and we're getting to see some of the elbows out well before the decisive moment. Here's another attempt at a run. from Pepe Fuentes there in second, on board with Tito just behind, but he is sizing them up and waiting for his chance. Miles and Mayer still in touch.
Watching on board from the Croatian driver's seat, a little bit of dip into the dirt here and there. Again, you can't get away with that too many times. I don't expect any driver to wind up with a penalty for going over those 17 incidents, but you have to watch out at least from time to time, more so that you don't wind up in the wall. Through, miss, hit, miss, and again, we see Fuentes just going well beyond the limits of the track and dipping his wheels off into the dirt.
That's one way of getting a little bit of rotation into this car around some of these high-speed corners. Hopefully not 17 times in 3 laps, hopefully, but I imagine that these drivers take risks and they know what they're doing. I'll be interested to look at the incident counts after the race, actually. So it's played a very small update. I don't think we're going to have a replay of this. I couldn't even find the moment myself, but Javier Casero-Romo was spotted in the pit lane after the first lap. There must have been some minor damage that was picked up or some mishap on the fuel or something like that. He was in the box for 17 seconds. Didn't see any major incident that kicked that off, but that's obviously kicked into the back of the road.
Yeah, it's a real shame if it was a failure of remembering the fuel, but we've all been there. It's a bit of a rookie mistake, but it's almost a rite of passage at the same time as well. In the meantime, this is where it really kicked off last time. Out of Bergwerks and into Kesselchen once again, climbing the hill. This is extremely steep, so while you are on the throttle for a long time, the car doesn't have the power. In fact, it's going to lose a little bit of top speed as it climbs up the hill.
This is getting way closer than it was last lap in a very, very scary way. Martinez on the left-hand side of the track. Tito just behind, constantly thinking, am I going to send it free? Am I going to send it free? And Adam hacking them tight like sardines from behind. Tito's fast, he's going to make it too wide, blocked off by Ricardo's car placement, and I keep thinking they're going to do something outrageous into there. There is technically the space, but you can tell they're getting scarier now. Don't want to see him in a lap now.
Yeah, you finally have to get off the throttle there through style Strecker for these cars. I have to admit that Adam Miles, to me, is continuing to impress with his patience and maturity in this race. He lost that lead. He hasn't really been trying to be over eager to get back up there. He watched those drivers fight, and he probably could have pushed the issue, but he decided to just kind of let them run side by side instead of making it 3 wide there and just watch and wait. It's only lap 2 out of 3. He's got a good chunk of time left, so we'll see what happens when we get to the Dottinger on the last lap, though.
Yeah, like, I'm kind of feeling right now, if I were to just make guesses, and I'm not the best of them, but the drivers that are up front now might be the drivers to benefit most at the end of the race, because they might get shuffled to the back, and then they can take the final run at the very, very end. If you're in 4th or 5th now, you might get sent up to P1, but another thing I've seen when I've seen these cars race around here is that you get this dynamic of, like, when it matters on that final lap, people are going to slow quite comedically on that straight. They're almost not going to want to be in P1 at the right time. People are going to be sort of giving up that lead and refusing to pass. It's an unusual dynamic every single time I see it, to be totally honest, but that's probably what you have to do when this race reaches its fever point.
Yeah, it's kind of Peloton racing in a way. Nobody wants to be the leader because it's all going to matter at that last moment. Meanwhile, I'm glad we jumped back here to Kopke. Remember how I said it was almost 3 seconds? It was down to about 1.4 for a brief moment there. They've chopped it down by a big chunk. It's back up to about 1.7, 1.8, but it has been cut down, and that makes me wonder that if those top 5 don't work together a little bit better to slingshot with one another, they could be caught by Group 2.
It might take quite a bit because it seems to expand back out by the straight every time, but you're right in that you can't count them out. Benjamin seems to be running fast laps around this track. He did set a qualifying time, and it was 5th fastest qualifying time of the group. So definitely knows how to get a lap around it done, and it seemed to climb a bit, fall a bit, climb a bit, fall a bit. I'll keep an eye on that gap, but it'll be very interesting if that's able to develop in the course of that final lap, as we are about to approach the longest straight that you know.
Onto the Dottinger, and up at the front, it is Martinez this time, but not for long. Fuentes will go on by. Tito now is going to use it. He's going to get both of them in one. Miles a bit back. Now, is this intentional? Is he trying to time this to figure out how far away he needs to be? He is going to get passed by Melia once again. But I wonder if...
Here comes 4.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I think Miles is trying to learn how far back he needs to be because he backed off, it looked like, on the way into that, and it worked out perfectly.
All right, so I don't want to tempt fate here, but I've been watching this from the chopper cam, and there's definitely theoretically space for a 5th car. So, they shouldn't try it, but I think you could get a 5th one in there. That's how desperate we might get by the end of this race. So we're going to find out as we reapproach the Grand Prix circuit for the final time, and we get to see some classic racing on here one last time. But really, the whole track has delivered way more so than I expected around here. Final lap of the race here, white flag, 3 wide.
It's given us fun, and I wondered if Miles would maybe back out of this fight, but he's not, surprisingly. I thought he would kind of let them through and fade back to the back of the field once again. He does not take the lead. Fuentes takes the front. Martinez trying to go around the outside in the Mercedes arena on Adam Miles. Maybe Adam would like to be in that P2 instead of coming into this one in 5th, as he does slot back into that 2nd position. They do still have it about 1.8, 1.9 on Group 2, so they were not gained upon by that one. You say they could fit 5, but you threw out that word theoretically. Theory doesn't always work in reality. I want to add into that.
You shouldn't do it. You just shouldn't do it, by the way, because it's literally no space between the cars. But someone's going to do it.
Theory is always one to be tested, so someone's going to try it. I have no doubt with this group. We've got the 5 cars. Can they time it right that they can get that 5 wide, and will they come away with it is the other question mark. Fuentes now leads. Miles, Martinez, Tito, and Melia are fighting for 4th and 5th amongst them. They need to be sure they don't lose touch with that group either.
And as you can see on the timing tower with the purple highlight, was Benjamin Kupke with the fastest lap last time around. A 14.2 was much faster than many of the 15s being run by the upper pack. Adam Miles actually had the best lap of that group because of the dotted upper run. He was able to make a 14.5, but that's a faster lap around this track. He's going to need to do a lot of work to join this pack, but he's not slow.
And it is worth noting that, in fact, I'd say more than half of our field does not have a fastest lap. So some of that going to Kopka is due to the fact that he was clean. For those not familiar, iRacing will delete the lap if you go off, and it won't count towards your fastest lap. So Fuentes has not had a clean one. Tito's not had a clean one. Melia has not either. 3 out of our top 5 need a clean one if they want the fastest lap. Of course, it doesn't count for anything other than eco here.
But I will say, looking at the data, that last lap was faster than everything that the upper pack ran. And you can see the last lap from the upper pack, even if it wasn't the fastest. And on my side, it was up to a second faster than a lot of the cars around them. Unfortunately, 1 second isn't quite going to make the difference up, but maybe there can be a hell to leather moment or something extraordinary can happen to put him further up. He's going to keep an eye on this lead pack, even though there's good racing all around, as that sure is a jump over the curb that you do with confidence. Ricardo Espinella Martinez, one of the 5 really looking to take this win. And it's not going to be about where you are now. And it's not even going to be about where you are at the beginning of the dot and the hoe. It's going to be about the strategies that you play. And we don't know what's going on in their head. They don't know what's going on in the head of others. Only they know. Do want to keep it on the track, but hopefully he's got the incident points to spare as the whole pack behind gets pretty close.
Yeah, you think about it. If you get up to 13 incident points, all it takes is a rough contact with another car, which you already don't want in open wheelers. Look at them all slide through the Swedish cross. In fact, it looked like it got awful loose there for Tito, who nearly lost control. He'll manage to hold on and get back into 2nd place.
One other thing Adam Miles could do is just run, and hope that these drivers tangle each other up, that he gains a gap big enough that they're going to fight too much between each other to settle. That hasn't proven into action yet. We've seen that half a second's enough to get a big run down the straight, but he's not playing hang-back games here. He seems to be putting on a degree of pace that's above his usual around here. He's pushing. Now the pack compresses back up. It's like an accordion, you know, it spreads out. You think something's going to happen there. It shrinks back in and then it spreads back out. Very unusual. It's got a very bird flock dynamic to it.
It absolutely is. Checking back in with the next group back, Kopka ahead of Martin, ahead of Burke. They're now at 3.2 seconds. So yeah, they've lost more time. Seems like certain parts of the track, they are quicker, and others, they are not. I'm not expecting them to catch on this final lap the way things are, unless we have a big accident. And Miles being up at the front surprises me. Maybe I was giving him a bit too much credit on him trying to be sneaky, or maybe this is him thinking, you know what, I could be too clever for my own good, being caught up in something in the middle of that pack. Better to try and control the narrative at this stage rather than just kind of sit behind.
Well, that final run is going to be silly because it's no longer going to be people just trying to get a run and size up their opponents. It's going to be people trying to slow down and trying to let people through in one way and people not wanting to pass in other ways. There's going to be this very unusual chess game down the long straight. And the thing is that you can only second guess what other people are trying to do and what other people are thinking. These misunderstandings can lead to accidents, both in the real world and in iRacing, but it certainly is a game that everybody is sizing up. And as you run your laps around there, you're thinking, what can I do to be in the right place on the back straight? And what are other people going to do to try and beat me? I'm going to try and think multiple layers.
You're playing 4D chess without a doubt out there. Everybody's got their own game plan, but I think it was Mike Tyson that said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's kind of, I think, how this is going to work out. You think you know what you're going to do, but you're going to have to really take it as it goes. As Siponki, I think, had a bit of an issue there on our replay. And again, if there was a plan, it definitely got thrown out the window because Martinez going 3 wide there to take back the lead. Miles tried to hold on to the top, but he gets shuffled to third as now Fuentes is going to try and fight back.
If you're fighting for the lead right now, I don't know what the game plan is, but I've also seen weirder down here, so honestly, like, anyone that fights their way and was willing to go 3 wide to get up there is either just doing it because slowing down is going to cause an accident, or they think they have a trick that nobody else is playing. This split's been remarkably clean in regards to incidents. Pretty much everybody has made it around the track without wrecking anybody else. And
do you have any wood
running out of time? You know, I do have the worst commentator's curse in history, so maybe I should shut up. This is your show.
I was going to say, you were the one that said it this time, not me, so I'll let you take the blame. Martinez still up ahead of Fuentes. Miles back into third, as we said. Tito and Melia, maybe they are waiting and hanging back. We don't know quite yet. They could pull a surprise. We saw Miles go from 5th to 1st a little bit earlier on lap 2, coming down the Dottinger Hoa. So that unfortunately played his cards a little bit early, and now everybody behind him also knows it's possible to do that if you time it right.
Well, only a few turns remain. You can start counting them down and down and down until drivers make the gutsy decisions that will make or break their races. It's been a fantastic duel so far, much more interesting than I anticipated, but as we run up the hill, we approach basically 2 big straights that are going to become a chess game in themselves. It's fascinating to watch these drivers run it, and I have no idea who's going to come out on top, but maybe I have to say the people in front have some plan.
I would think so, and I just noticed that Martinez is the hardest charger of the race, actually. He's up 5 positions, so it's worked out well for him, but it's not over till it's over in this situation. This is again through the Beloff S's up towards Swallowtail here. So there's another long stretch. We're not seeing cars really attacking here in the slipstream. Again, interesting because here we go. This is this pretty much is it. We may have a little bit of lift after the mini carousel. So they have to get on the brakes there, but from here up through Gallows Hill, it might just be the tiniest of let off the throttle, and it is all down to where you position yourself.
What are the games that these drivers are trying to play, and what are they going to do in order to win this? Adam Miles dropping back. He's 7-8 tenths gone. Something went horribly wrong in those last few turns, and he just doesn't seem a part of this battle. There's contact up in the front, and it's not a disqualification. There's network problems there. Recovered to the track, and we're already getting physical here.
Yeah, I thought maybe that was a car disappearing due to incident problems. We're going to go 4 wide. We almost have a chance to go 5 wide. Miles is going to follow them through. And again, I'm pretty sure he was trying to play this right. Oh, but he gets squeezed. There's no room at the end. Tito and Melia will cover him off. He can't run through the middle like he thought he could. But Fuentes is able to go around the outside all the way into the grass. They're 3 wide and banging wheels now. They're coming up to the braking of the last chicane. And Fuentes completely off the circuit is going to lose the opportunity. 2 wide through Tiergarten and through Hohenrhein. Who's got the run off the final corner? They're all just banging off of each other like ping pong balls. Tito has the nose ahead, once again makes a little bit of contact. It's going to be close as they come to the line as we wait for the results. And I believe Tito got it by 14 thousandths of a second.
That was all disrupted by Fuentes just trying everything and pushing it a little too far. I'm amazed his rejoin didn't take out the pack, but that basically slowed down everyone outside of that top 2 and stopped them from reaching the top. There was 100th in the possibility of that race being taken away on the line. You move that line 100 meters down and we have a different result here today. That's a little bit more chaotic than even I thought it was going to be honest.
Honestly, I think if you move it 10 meters down, it would have had a different result. It was awful close. Cabal almost able to get 13th off of Supanki, but unable to do it. And impressively, not something we say often about races at the Nürburgring, all 16 cars are going to finish. This is wild. It's going to be a little bit of a late one for Romo, as he did have his extra visit into pit lane. But since we've got everybody else, across the line, we might as well go through the finishing order. My goodness, what a race this one was, as Vlado Tito will come away with the victory by the smallest of margins and hung tough there at the end of the race. It really took some guts to try and hang it out there and come away with the victory over Melia, who finished P2. Martinez was P3 with Adam Miles in 4th position, as Pepe Fuentes will be last amongst that top group in 5th. You hop down to the next group. Martin will come away the winner with them in 6th, Kopka in 7th, and Burke in P8. From then, Brandon Krusta will be 9th, and Frankie D rounds out your top 10. I'll just read through the rest here. Osbeck was, Frankie D was 10th. Yes, excuse me. Got a little confused with the numbers on the cars here. Osbeck was 11th, and then you've got Garcia in 12th, Supanki in 13th, Cabal 14th, Hernandez 15th, and Romo, sadly, last on the field in 16th. All within 2 minutes of one another, though, on this one. Waiting to see if we get any drivers hopping over to chat with us. But I'm with you, Howie, that I'm really impressed with the racing we had today. It was clean. It was very fierce, but at no point did I feel like anybody stepped over a line.
Well, that got a little bit uncomfortably physical near the end. I thought someone was going to get wiped out and sent to the Shadow Realm, but instead I was very, very, very surprised that we kept that in one piece. But people get more and more desperate as that race goes on, and it becomes a little bit of a gamble and a little bit of, as you mentioned, a 4D chess game. People trying to force themselves wide in there. What I was surprised by was, in general, the way people actually raced around the track before they got in a hole. These cars were small and nimble enough that people were able to get side by side, push to position, make daring passes. It was a lot of fun even outside of the draft game.
Indeed, and we're going to be going to something different. We're holding out to see if we can get some interviews. But first, we want to give a little bit of a preview of next race. Complete opposite to Summit Point, one of the shortest circuits that you're going to race on here. Traffic could wind up actually being a major problem. Laps are incredibly short, and the only thing I think it has in common, Howie, is it's also very narrow over there in West Virginia.
This is a Skip Barber classic, and you'll be surprised by the amount of slipstreaming you see down here as you run down the main straight as well. As you exit that last turn and you fly through, I've seen races won on the line by the side draft here. It's an absolute joy. It shows up almost every season. It does so for a very, very good reason. This is my favorite Skip Barber track on the whole schedule.
I do love getting call races there. It's one of those tracks that if you've been on iRacing and you've been running the roadside, you probably have driven on it at some point. It's part of the base content. It's been around since essentially the very, very start of iRacing, and it has been a staple. It's very fun in these lesser powered cars, so I think it's great that we are taking the Skippies to this track. Should put on a pretty good show. I understand we are waiting for Adam Miles. We're going to give him, I think, at least one more minute before we call this one, because I would like to hear his thoughts and also get into his brain, Howie, to see was he trying to wait and be kind of tricky about this, or was he just kind of taking it as it comes?
Getting inside someone's head around there and trying to understand quite what they're doing is a challenge in itself. I'm just trying to get the link sent out and trying to make sure that I'm being told that he is in the ready for interview channel here. I don't see him. So,
yeah, I'm not seeing him either, unfortunately. So, we'll take.
Working on it. I'm doing my best.
I know. I know you're in contact with him, trying to see if we can get him in here. I'll go by the cue of our producer on when to call it, though. He gets the final say on that one. But we're in the meantime getting a look at that action. I mean, look at Fuentes, completely four wheels off for a brief moment there, keeps it from spinning around. But that was the first time he was four wheels off. The second time, unfortunately, wound up not going as well.
He claims he's in the channel and see it, and we claim we're just not seeing it equally at the same way. I swear, if you look at that chopper cam, if you pat those cars in tightly, a fifth one can sneak its way in, maybe two wheels on the grass, just get itself sort of over the line. At that point, though, no one can do anything at all, and you've basically doomed the entire pack to a terrible experience. So I'm not making that as a formal suggestion. I'm just saying that these cars are so small that you can pack more into the Nordschleife than you can possibly imagine. There's the off-track run on the outside, and that was pretty much due to disrupt the entire field's chance at the win.
I'm just glad that he didn't wind up running into them, because often when that happens, at least in much faster cars, they're on for a ride, they can't control it, and you're just going to become a bowling ball. You could see he was trying very hard to keep it from running into the side of all those cars. So, and then from there, it was down to these drivers trying to carry this too wide moment, especially with Tito and Melia up at the front, just bouncing off of one another up through this chicane to try and figure out who gets the speed off the final corner. It looks like we do, in fact, have Adam with us. Adam, welcome. We saw a lot of you, trying to make some runs in the middle of the race, get up towards the front and lead. How much were you playing the game of waiting to the end? How much were you basically kind of doing whatever the moment calls for?
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to come down to the final straight. It was just a case of whether I could maybe put a nice lap together from the front. But you can be at the front for a third of a lap, and then a couple of people come by, and you don't get the chance to put the hammer down. So I thought I'd lead the beginning of the last lap, knowing that I'd be overtaken during the middle of the lap, and then somewhere be like third or fourth coming onto the final straight. And it kind of worked out, and built a nice gap. Clawed it back by the end of the straight, but then just got bulked a little bit. The gap that I was going for became a non-gap, and then just had to get on the brakes, unfortunately, which arrested my run.
The other thing that wowed us is with how physical the racing got there at that last battle for the win. Nobody wrecked out. We kind of thought, as good as you guys are, somebody was going to wind up at the side of the road. Were you surprised by that too?
Yes, I mean, looking at how it went, I think 4 wide with one person on the grass, 4 wide, and then it was 3 and 2, and then I think it was Fuentes off to the right in the grass, and I just thought, oh, I'm about to get absolutely creamed here as he jumps over the curb and comes back onto the track. But we did make contact, but it wasn't enough to turn me round, and then just need another 100 meters for the podium. So, minus 16 I rating for fourth these days is a pretty good result. So I'm just glad I'm not bringing the car back on a trailer.
Yeah, exactly. So next week, going to be at the polar opposite, but that close quarters racing experience going to come in handy. How you feel about Summit Point?
I mean, it's a classic. I mean, who's not driven Summit Point 100 times in their iRacing career? So it does some great racing. I mean, you can go side by side almost the entire lap at Summit Point in these cars. So expecting a similar sort of race, maybe not wanting to drop back to fourth, but certainly the run to line from second can definitely be done. So yeah, it'll be a different race, but actually still very close, I think.
I'm looking forward to that one just as much. Again, commiserations, it wasn't a podium, but thanks for an entertaining race.
Yep, thanks for having me.
That was Adam Miles finishing P4 today, which is, in fact, going to wrap us up with a big thank you to the team today, Howie, Christian, and Dougie. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. As we've already mentioned, the next race is at Summit Point, October 2nd at 2:15 p.m. Eastern. But up next on the channel, the Sim Racing Republic goes to Portimao. And I take that back. Looks like we have Grand Prix Legends up next here on the channel. Be sure to check out all the broadcasts we have listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
This is iRacing.